Alright guys, what's up? Diego here, just running through an auto filter real fast, just making a quick auto filter vid, just gonna kind of run through it and the parameters and everything that it kind of does. And this auto filter is probably a little more extensive than people usually like to think. So this video is going to be a little bit longer, but it kind of needs to be because when it comes to sound design, nothing is simple. So yeah, if you thought this was going to be like a quick 5-minute video, then you can go somewhere else because this is going to take a little bit of time to really break down. But anyways, so the auto filter, I'm going to be breaking it down, and as you can see, it's kind of divvied up into 3 sections. You got your right section with your LFO, your middle section with all the main frequency shit, and your left section with the envelope. And so I'm going to start in the middle, then go right, and then go left. So to start us off in the middle here, this is where all kind of quote unquote the magic happens. Like, this is where you're actually filtering shit. So this is where you're deciding what to filter and where to filter it. And what's going to decide that is your little rectangle dealies down here. This is going to help you decide which frequencies you want to pass through and which ones you don't. And you can kind of see visually with the graph which frequencies are going to be allowed to come through. Like, anything within these orange lines here are frequencies that you're going to hear. Anything outside is going to be cut out. So, think of yourself like a good example when using filters is think of yourself like as like a sculptor, right? And you got your fucking, not metal block, but you got your like fucking marble block and you want to like build a fucking statue, right? So you're coming in and you're like, got to chip away, right? Like, chink, 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 chink. And so what you're doing, it's the same concept. You're filtering out, you're getting rid of, you're carving away everything that you don't want. So that's kind of a cool little metaphor to use or to think of when you're going about doing this, is like, which frequencies do I want to cut out? How do I want to sculpt this sound? And you have your 4 main types, which are low pass, which allows everything below this cutoff to pass. You have your high pass, which allows everything above this cutoff to pass. High pass, everything higher than this is going to pass. Low pass, everything lower than this is going to pass. Band pass, everything within this little band is going to pass. And a notch filter, which everything within this little notch here is going to be cut out and you won't hear it. So that's a little bit about the 4 filter types when it comes to deciding what to cut and where. And this last little morph guy here is really fucking handy. It's a handy little tool. You can morph between the 4 different filter types, the low, high, band, and notch filter. So this is a cool fucking thing to modulate because you can hear it. I'll play it here. Oh fuck. There we go. Like, you can definitely see how you could have some dope ass modulation and get some really cool results. I love modulating this morph filter. It's super dope. So that's a little bit about that, how that works and what all that stuff does. And then you got this little drop down menu here, which this is all just distortion for your filter. Your OSR is hard clipping distortion. Your MS2 is soft clipping distortion. And then your PRD here, that's a ladder. It's a ladder circuit. And what a ladder circuit does is filters have what are called poles. And a pole is a 6 decibel gain reduction. And so each of those poles, every 6 decibels that you go, each of those poles are going to interact with each other. They play off of each other. As to how exactly they do that, I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to do more research on it. I just know that's how it works. So that's all the information I can give you at the current moment. But and so what this SMP guy does is it's a combination between the soft clipping and the ladder circuit. And that's just what the PRD is. And that's a little bit about this. This is just distortion and the different kinds. And then the drive, once you choose one, this little drive guy pops up, and that just determines how much distortion you want to affect the sound. So that's a little bit about that. And then the last thing in this middle guy here is this quantize, which causes your filter to jump. And what I mean by that is, like, if I put this little frequency filter guy, let's just say I modulate this real fast. Oh shit. So I've got this filter opening up, right? And so what's going to happen is these are all values of 16th notes. So 1/16, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. And it's going to step as it goes up. So you'll be able to hear it. It's kind of dope. So and I can have it run slower. I can have it run faster. So that's a little bit about that, and that's just how that works. And the quantize really works well once you start combining it with the LFO and the envelope. And that's a little more advanced, and I'll get to that towards the end of the video. But for now, I just wanted to explain that real fast. So that's kind of what the quantize does, is it allows the filter to kind of step up. And what it does when it's stepping up, I don't really know. I just know it steps up. So like I said, I'll have to do a little more in-depth research on that to see exactly what the fuck is going on with that quantize. And I can make a future video on that as well. So that pretty much is it for the middle. So now we're going to jump over here to the right section to this LFO. So what this LFO is going to do is obviously LFO your sound. It's going to LFO the frequency cutoff. And so, let's just play it here. So you can hear it being modulated. You can hear it getting louder and quieter because it's modulating this cutoff. It's telling the cutoff to go up and down and up and down and up and down. And if you want that to happen faster, you just come over here to the rate and boost it. Boom. And so that's kind of what the LFO does. It just kind of interrupts the signal and kind of ducks it, because that's what an LFO is. It's a low frequency oscillator that interrupts the incoming signal with a signal that is so low that you can't hear it. So that's why it cuts it out. So that's a little bit about that. I'm not going to dive into LFOs right now. That's not the point of this video, but I just wanted to let you know kind of a little bit about that and how it works. And obviously you have these little shapes, which is going to control the shape of the actual LFO. Like you could tell it was pretty smooth flowing. And if I choose a sawtooth, like a saw up, it's going to ramp up and then sharply cut down. And vice versa. And then I can do random shit, which is sample and hold. Sample and hold is just a random generator where it'll just randomly do whatever the fuck it wants. So that's pretty cool if you're looking to get into some experimental shit or you just want to have fun. So that's a little bit about that. And then the rate also has this other parameter, this note, which time locks it. It uses the host tempo from the song that you're playing to tell the LFO how to run. And this is widely popular in EDM for sure, because it allows it to stay locked, so you don't ever have to worry if you're going to miss a beat, if it's going to be off tempo or not. You don't ever have to worry. Whoop. It's always going to be uniform to your tempo, so you don't ever have to worry. So if you want to make sure that it's going to be clear and concise, just hit that little tempo button. As opposed to Hertz is free flowing, the little beat guy is on beat. It correlates to the tempo. So that's a little bit about that. And then as you can see, when I'm going between the two, my right below it switches, it changes. So for the Hertz, you get this phase knob. And what this phase knob does, I got this auto pan loaded up right here, and I'll show you. So, because this gives a good visual representation of it. So your phase is, the thing to know about this is the LFO within Ableton is actually two LFOs. It actually has two LFOs, one for the left channel and one for the right channel. And the phase, as you can see, if you watch this AutoPan visualizer, you can see what happens when I move the phase. Like, that's what's happening between the left and the right channel. They're becoming out of phase. So once you do that, as you can see, they're both interlocked with the same phase. They both have the same phase at 0% right now. So when I play it, the left and the right channel are going to be uniform. Here, let's just tempo lock it to make things simple. So when I start to bring this out of phase, the left and the right channel are going to play differently. And then once I get to 180, they run opposite of each other. You can hear it bouncing between the left and the right channel. Because if I bring the phase 180 at this AutoPan, you can see what it's doing. They're completely opposite of each other. And once I start to bring it a little more out, that's what's happening with the LFO. That's what it looks like. If you were to be able to see what the LFO is doing, that's what it's doing when you're moving it out of phase. And then offset just determines where in that phase cycle it's going to begin. Like, let's just bring everything down to 0 here. And so what I mean by that is, like you can see here, it starts at the top and then it down slopes, right? Well, what if I didn't want it to do that? What if I wanted it to start on the upslope? You can take the offset and boom. Like, this is exactly what's going to happen with your LFO. It's going to move in correlation to where you have the offset. The offset determines where the LFO is going to start within its cycle, is what that means. So the phase determines how out of sync the left and right channel are, and the offset determines where it's going to start within its cycle. So I hope that part made sense. It's kind of a lot of technical stuff there, but I hope it made sense. And one thing I did forget to mention, though, is when you have it in Hertz mode, you have this phase, and I just ran through that, so we know what the phase does. But you have this little almost like speaker looking icon. And if you click that, your phase changes to spin. And what that means is now your left and right channel are going to be detuned from each other. Oh, excuse me. So your left and your right channel are going to be detuned from each other, but the detunings are going to be interlocked. And what I mean by that is, like, let's just say, for example, your left channel is detuned at 2, and your right channel is detuned at 6. Like, let's just say those are the settings that it uses. They're going to be intercorrelated. So if I switch my left channel to 6, the right channel is going to go to 2. So they're interlocked. So they move simultaneously together. It's not random. So if I play it, you can see they're kind of going out of sync, which is similar to phase, but not quite, because this is just detuning it. Phase is actually moving them out of phase with each other. This is just using a set parameter to determine, I guess you could say, how out of phase they are. Like, phase is a little more random. You have a little more control over it. Spin is just, this is what it is, and this is how much it's going to affect it by, is a good way to think of it. And like I said before, if that didn't make the most sense, let me know in the comments below so I can help clear things up in future videos. So that's a little bit about that section, the LFO. And so lastly, I'm going to come over here to this envelope on the left. And the envelope is a little tricky. It's a little tricky to understand at first. But what the envelope does is, it's essentially similar to the LFO. It is modulating the cutoff. And up and down, you can move this positive or negative, and that's going to determine the intensity. How much does it need to modulate this filter cutoff? And then you have these other two buttons, the attack and release, and these are determining, okay, how quickly do I need to get up to this modulation level? And the release is, okay, how quickly do I need to bring it back down? And what's determined by all that is your incoming signal from your synthesizer. That is going to tell your envelope here in your auto filter, okay, I need to modulate it by this much. And what it does is it takes your incoming signal, and the loudest parts of your signal is where it's going to modulate. So What I mean by that is, like, here, let's just play it. This shit happened before it glitched out, so I'm gonna have to reload it. So, like, I have it right here, right? Since this incoming signal is pretty bright, it's going to have to adjust this modulating, it's going to have to adjust this cutoff as such. So the more gain your signal has, the more this is going to be modulated. And this attack determines how quickly it modulates, basically. And the release is, okay, the incoming signal has passed, and I hit the peaks, I modulated the peak. Now how quickly or how slowly do I come back down? You see what I'm saying? So, like, let's say I blast this up to 400, it's going to stay there more or less for a while. Okay, so this thing's just being a piece of shit because it shouldn't do that. But, so let me do this again. So the release is how long does it take to come back down to the very bottom, to the quiet parts of the signal. That's what that means, is how much do I need to modulate it, how quickly do I need to get up there, and then how quickly or slowly do I need to come back down. And that, like I said, that is all based off of your input signal, what is coming through from your synthesizer. So, and then lastly, last but not least, in your auto filter, you have this little side chain that you can activate by pressing this little triangle guy. And so what you're going to do is you're going to click sidechain, and now you can select any sound that you want that's in Ableton to trigger this envelope. So I have a kick loaded up here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose that kick, and every time that kick hits, every time that kick plays, this envelope is going to be triggered. So I'll play it and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. I mean, it works similar to a sidechain on a compressor. And then this gain knob is going to determine, you know, the signal that's coming from my kick. How bright is the signal that's coming through from my kick. So if I turn it up, that kick signal is really coming through, and it's really having an effect on the envelope. Turn it back down. And then the dry wet is a dry wet knob. You know, how present do I want this kick to be? You know, none at all or all the way. So that's a little bit about that. That's a little bit about the envelope. And once you start to get really good with this envelope and really start to understand it, you know, you can use it in conjunction with your LFO to get some super, super dope, gnarly results. And I'll go ahead and fuck with it here, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And then you throw that quantize in there. Which the quantize seems to cancel out the LFO, which I'm not quite sure why, but it does. So I phase it. So that's a little bit about that, and you can see how it could get pretty wonky pretty fast, but that's a little bit about that. That is the auto filter in a nutshell, and that's just kind of how it works. And once you get good with it and start practicing it and, you know, using it on a daily basis, you can, like I just showed you, you can do some really cool fucking stuff with it. You can do some awesome fucking shit with it. So it might just be an auto filter, yes, but there's so much more that you can do with it because of this LFO and this envelope. So that pretty much wraps it up. That wraps up this video. That is the auto filter in a nutshell. That's how it works and some cool ways to use it. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you found it informative and maybe even insightful. And if you did, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. That would be awesome. And if you want to subscribe, that would be even more awesome, because I'm going to be doing the same thing with all of these effects. I'm just going to run through them all and just kind of break them down and show some uses for them and just kind of what they're all about. So, and then after that, I'm going to do the same thing with all these instruments. I'm just going to break all this shit down, all this Ableton stuff down, to try and help people figure out how the fuck all this shit works, because it can be pretty confusing if you are just starting out. That is for sure. So yeah, so that was a little bit about the auto filter. Like I said, I hope you guys found it informative. Hopefully it was helpful. Leave some comments below regarding such things if you found it helpful, or if there were some things that were maybe confusing, or if there's something that I could clear up in the future. And I'll be reading all the comments. And yeah, just hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and that little bell guy's gonna let you know immediately when I upload. So stay tuned for that. So in a couple days, I will be uploading an amp video, and I will just go through the amp and what this is all about. So you guys can stay tuned for that. So that'll be coming on Friday, so you can expect that. So until then, guys, I hope this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.